President Obama spoke to young leaders during this town hall-style meeting at the University of Malaya in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. His talk was briefly disrupted by peaceful protesters holding up signs denouncing a sweeping new trade deal, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP, often referred to by critics as NAFTA on steroids, as you were talking about establishing a free trade zone that would stretch from Vietnam to Chile, encompass 800 million people, about a third of world trade, nearly 40% of the global economy. Obama defended the TPP.
The trade agreement that we're trying to create, the TPP, part of what we're trying to do is to create higher standards for labor protection, higher standards for environmental protection, more consistent protection of intellectual property, because increasingly that's the next phase of wealth. All those things require more transparency and more accountability and more rule of law. And I think that it's entirely consistent with Malaysia moving into the next phase.
That's President Obama in Malaysia. Who is advising President Obama on TPP? The unions, environmental organizations? Ralph Nader.
Well, they can't get back through the secrecy of these negotiations and these drafts. As Lori Wallach of Global Trade Watch has pointed out repeatedly, even members of Congress couldn't get the draft negotiations from the TPP, although the corporate lobbyists have access to these drafts. But it's quite clear that the TPP is nothing more than an extension of NAFTA and the World Trade Organization on steroids. And here's where we have a left-right alliance, each one with their reason. On the left, they're opposed to these agreements because they're bad for workers, they're bad for the price of medicines being affordable under the intellectual property rules that are being negotiated. They're bad for open government, and they're bad for the environment. On the right, they don't like these trade agreements because they shred our sovereignty. I happen to agree with that, too. All international treaties reduce sovereignties by definition. But this one, these trade agreements are the greatest usurpers of local, state, and national sovereignty in American history. And so we have this growing alliance. And by the way, it goes back to documents like the 2002 Texas Republican state platform that was dead set against these trade agreements on sovereignty issues. So I don't think President Obama is reflecting his campaign assurances in 2008 when he said he was going to work to revise NAFTA and WTO for better environmental, labor, and consumer protections. He hasn't done that for WTO or NAFTA.